Good morning, everyone. Let's begin with your doubts. So please post your doubts. Please post your doubts. Let's begin with your doubts. If there are no doubts, we proceed with the next part of AS-17. Okay, there is one doubt which says explain assets arising directly out of operating activities. So assets, if you have a machinery used for manufacturing, then it is an asset which arises directly from your operating activities, right? It is specifically used for manufacturing items of that segment. If it is specifically used for manufacturing items of a particular segment, then it is known as a directly attributable asset to your operating activities, right? I hope that solves your doubt. Anyone else, if you have a doubt, let's first solve that, else we proceed to the last part of the standard, which is your transfer pricing policy. Okay, since you're clear with this and you have no doubts, let's begin with the transfer pricing policy. Okay, just try and understand the entire concept. We'll first read this and then we proceed to understanding the concept. They have given transfer pricing policy, which says AS-7 does not require disclosure of transfer pricing policy. Please underline this. AS-17 does not require any disclosure of the transfer pricing policy. Hence, transfer pricing policy can be either at cost, above cost or below cost. Very important. आपकी ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी कुछ भी हो सकती है, एट कॉस्ट, अबव कॉस्ट, बिलो कॉस्ट. और AS-17 कभी ऐसा नहीं कहता कि आप ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी को डिस्क्लोज करो. आगे पढ़ते हैं. It says all AS-17 requires is that the transfer pricing policy adopted at the enterprise level. Underline the word adopted at the enterprise level. All it says is that transfer pricing policy which is adopted at the enterprise level should be used at the segment level. Underline that. जो ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी आपने एंटरप्राइज लेवल पे अडॉप्ट की है, वही सेम आपको कहां पे अडॉप्ट करनी है? सेगमेंट लेवल पे अडॉप्ट करनी है. राइट, नाउ लेट्स गो टू द कंसेप्ट एंड लेट्स ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दे आर सेइंग एट एवरी कंसेप्ट. First, let's understand what is a transfer pricing policy. Transfer pricing policy means when one segment of a company is selling its goods or providing its services to another segment of the same company, the price at which this transfer is made is known as a transfer pricing policy. Right? Are you understanding? It says एक ही बड़ी कंपनी के अंदर 4-5 अलग सेगमेंट है. अगर एक सेगमेंट किसी और सेगमेंट को अपनी सर्विसेज दे रहा है तो वो किस रेट पे दे रहा है, दैट रेट इज नोन एज द ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी. Are you understanding? Let's take one simple example. We have two segments of a big company. The big company is Reliance. Reliance का एक है telecommunication segment where they have Jio और एक है मान लो insurance sector, right? Reliance Insurance. Now, if Reliance Insurance says that we want to give a SIM card to each and every employee in the company so that they can make all the phone calls pertaining to insurance. Then they decide that rather than buying the SIM card from someone else, let's buy it from our own business, from our own company. Let's give everyone a Jio SIM card. Then Jio SIM card of Reliance telecommunication segment is giving or providing service to another segment of the same company, which is Reliance Insurance. Now the problem is, कहने को दोनों अलग अलग सेगमेंट है लेकिन उन दोनों के ऊपर मेन कंपनी एक है. They two are a part of one same company. Now please understand, one more important thing that I want to tell you is that both the segments are separate profit centers. Both the companies are different profit centers, means they maintain and record their own profitability. इसका मतलब ये भी नहीं कि जियो सब कुछ लॉस करके इंश्योरेंस वालों को दे देगा कि जाओ आप एक ही कंपनी में तो जो कर रहे करो. They maintain their own profit. Now the problem is that we have to understand what is the transfer pricing policy that one segment is adopting with the other segment. AS-17 says आपको जो ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी यूज करनी है करो, हमको कोई लेना देना नहीं है. हमको सिर्फ एक ही चीज चाहिए, वो है कंसिस्टेंसी. जो ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी आप एंटरप्राइज लेवल पे यूज कर रहे हो वही ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी आप सेगमेंट लेवल पे यूज करोगे. मतलब ओवरऑल आपकी कंपनी ने जो ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी अडॉप्ट की है वही सेम ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी हर सेगमेंट पे यूज करनी है. Right, this is the concept of AS-17. That transfer pricing policy adopted at the enterprise level should be the same that is adopted at the segment level. They have no problem with whatever transfer pricing policy you are adopting. All they need is consistency. Whatever you are using at the enterprise level, the same should be used at the segment level. Now you should have a question that why this concept of transfer pricing was introduced. Now I'll explain to you what happened. The concept of transfer pricing was introduced because one company had a business in US, India, Germany, Japan. One company had businesses in India, Germany, US, and Japan. Now see what happened in this case. Sorry. Okay, let's understand what happened in this case. They tried to find out what is the profit in India. They tried to find out what is the profit in India. In India, you have 30% tax rate. not the profit. They tried to find out what is the tax rate in India. So tax rate in India is 30%. They tried to find out the tax rate in Germany. It was 10%. Then in Japan, it was 5%. And in US, it was 15%. Which means they tried to decide that India is a country where we should show lesser profits. क्यों? क्योंकि इंडिया में जो भी प्रॉफिट आप दिखाओगे तो टैक्स कितने पे लगेगा? 30% पे लगेगा. राइट. दे डिसाइडेड कि इस तरीके से नहीं करते. इंडिया में जहाँ पे टैक्स रेट ऑलरेडी बहुत ज्यादा है, वहाँ जितना हो सके कम प्रॉफिट दिखाते हैं. हमारा सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉफिट हम दिखाएंगे जापान में. सो विल शो मोर प्रॉफिट at Japan. Why will we show more profit at Japan? In Japan, we want to show as high a profit at Japan so that in Japan we can have lesser amount of tax. Which means whatever transfer they will make, they means the company will make from India to Japan, they will ensure they sell at low price. Low price will lead to low profit. They will ensure कि हम यहाँ इंडिया से जो भी बना के बेचेंगे वो बहुत सस्ते रेट पे बेचेंगे. बहुत सस्ते रेट पे बेचेंगे तो इंडिया में कम प्रॉफिट होगा. ये इंडिया वालों को पता चल गया कि ये लोग ऐसा कर रहे हैं. हमारे रिसोर्सेज यूज कर रहे हैं. They use our resources, they use our manpower, but all profits are accumulated outside India. Right? They found out that they are using the Indian resources, they are using Indian manpower, but the problem is they are accumulating all the profits outside India. Then they decided something we will have to do, and then they introduced the concept of transfer pricing policy, where they decided कि आपको जो रेट पे देना है वो, पर टैक्स पर्पसेस के लिए आज से आप वही पॉलिसी यूज करोगे जो हमने आपको बताया. सो इनकम टैक्स एक्ट introduced the Income Tax Act introduced a special section for transfer pricing policy, and they tried to ensure that they implement this transfer pricing policy to understand that no one does these kinds of things in India anymore. Are you understanding? This is the concept of transfer pricing policy. All you have to remember, ये सब तो मैंने आपको आपके knowledge के लिए समझाया. In AS-17, all you have to remember is that AS-17 does not have any disclosure of transfer pricing policy. Transfer pricing policy can be anything that you want. All we want is consistency. The transfer pricing policy adopted at the enterprise level should be the same transfer pricing policy that you adopt at the segment level. Are you understanding? This is all we want. Right? Okay. After this, we will go to illustration 2 and 3 a little bit later. Right now, come to key points of AS-17. Let's understand that. Key points of AS-17. Key points of AS-17. It says, if in the current year a segment is reportable, important points se dhyan dena. If in the current year a segment is reportable, but it was not reportable in the previous year, then in the segment report of the current year, information should be provided of the previous year. Okay, ध्यान देना. वो ऐसा बोल रहे हैं कि अगर करंट ईयर में कोई सेगमेंट, hello, okay, just understand it once again. Are you able to clearly hear me? Are you able to clearly hear me? Are you able to clearly hear me? Okay, let's proceed then. It says if in the current year इस साल में कोई सेगमेंट रिपोर्टेबल है बट इट वाज नॉट रिपोर्टेबल इन द प्रीवियस ईयर, मतलब मान लो सेगमेंट ए करंट ईयर में रिपोर्टेबल है लेकिन प्रीवियस ईयर में वो रिपोर्टेबल नहीं था, तब अपन को क्या करना है? देन इन द सेगमेंट रिपोर्ट ऑफ द करंट ईयर information of the previous year should be provided. Okay, let me prepare this for you. Segment current year, previous year. If in the current year it is reportable, in the previous year not reportable, still in the current year you will have to give information about the previous year. So then I'm writing over here note. In the current year, information for previous year should be provided for comparison. Are you understanding? Right? If a segment is reportable in the current year, but it was not reportable in the previous year, then what will you do? In the current year, you will give separate disclosures in for the previous year. Why? So that you can easily compare. तो मान लो एक segment last year reportable नहीं था, पर current year में reportable है, तो current year में last year का भी information provide करने का, even though it was not reportable. Why? Because you want to ensure that the two segments can be easily compared, current year versus the previous year. Are you understanding? So in order to ensure that, you will have to make sure that you are having proper disclosures. Okay, come to the next one. Look at the second point that they've given. If in the current year a segment is not reportable but was reportable in the previous year, then in the segment report of the current year, separate disclosures for all such segments should be provided. Now let's look at the other situation. Again, a segment, this time not reportable in the previous year, but it is not reportable in the current year, but it is reportable in the previous year. Then in the current year, in the current year, such segment should be separately disclosed for comparison. Are you getting it? Again, I am repeating for you. If a segment is reportable in the current year but not reportable in the previous year, then in the current year, information of previous year should be provided for comparison. Point number 2. If a segment is not reportable in the current year but was reportable in the previous year, then in the current year, such segment should still be separately disclosed for comparison. Are you getting it? Then come to the next point, which says if the same segment as specified in point number 2 above continues to remain non-reportable in the subsequent year also, then separate disclosures for such segment are not required. Okay, very good point. Let's again understand this. Let's take two examples. Segment, say for example, this is segment 1. ध्यान देना, अच्छा point है. Year 1 reportable. Year 2 not reportable. Is separate disclosure required? Yes, it is required. Okay. Same segment 1. Year 1 not reportable. Year 2 reportable. Is separate disclosure required? Yes. Okay. Segment 1, year 1, not reportable. Year 2 also not reportable. So 2 consecutive years it is not reportable. Is separate disclosure required? The answer this time is no. Are you understanding? Year 1 separate disclosure is required. Year 2 separate disclosure. Year 2 reportable. Year 1 reportable. Separate disclosure required. Year 1 reportable. Year 2 not reportable. No separate disclosure is required. Year 1 not reportable. Year 2 reportable. Separate disclosure is still required. If it remains non-reportable for 2 consecutive years, then no disclosure is required. Are you understanding? Okay, let's look at the example that I have framed for you. Look at this example. You have segment A, B, C, D, E, and you have 3 consecutive years. Now, please understand. Let's focus on B. If we talk about 31st March 2017, please pay attention. Or let's do one thing. Let me prepare this over here. You have 31st March 2016, 17, and 18. Okay, let's focus on this example. 31st March 2016, 31st March 2017, and 31st March 2018. You have segment A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, let's understand. Is this segment reportable? Yes. Is segment B reportable? No. Yes. Yes and no. Come to the next year. It says A and B are reportable, C and E are not reportable. So reportable, reportable, not reportable, reportable and not reportable. Okay, come to the last one. It is reportable, not reportable, not reportable, not reportable, and not reportable. Okay, let's understand case by case. First, let's understand this one. Let's first understand B, right? B, if I talk about B, means the yellow highlighted portion. If I talk about in the year 31st March 2017, which is the current year, in the current year it is reportable, but was not reportable in the previous year. Separate disclosure is required in 31st March 2017. Are you understanding? Right, I am again writing it for you. It says current year, that is 31st March 2017. This segment is reportable, but previous year 31st March 2016 not reportable. Then in the current year, that is 31st March 2017, separate disclosures are needed. Are you understanding? You will need separate disclosures regarding this. Are you getting it? This is for the yellow part. Come to the next one. Let's understand the next case. See what they've given. In this case, information pertaining to segment of 31st March 2016 should be provided on 31st March 2017. So information of 31st March 2016 should be provided on 31st March 2017. Right, okay. This is your This is your information pertaining to segment B. Just let me set this. Give me a moment. Okay. So this is your answer for the yellow color, which is this here. Come to the next case. Let's take another case which says in this case at the rate. So now we are talking about second year of C. Let's focus on that. We are talking now about this year and this year. Let's understand these two properly. If you understand these two cases, it says in the current year, 31st March 2017. Now this time we have two such cases. So I'm writing over here 31st March 2017 and 31st March 2018. A segment is not reporting. Right? Pay attention. In 31st March 2017 and 31st March 2018, a segment is not reportable. But in the previous year, that is 31st March 2016 and 31st March 2017, it was reportable. Then in your current years, that is this current year, 31st March 2017 and 31st March 2018, then in 31st March 2017 and 31st March 2018, separate disclosures are required. मतलब यहाँ पे it is not reportable, but previous year it was reportable. Still separate disclosures are required. यहाँ पे it is reportable, but in the current year 31st March 2018 not reportable. Still separate disclosures are required. Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? Okay, come to the next one, the last case. And there we talk about this segment. So let's focus on this segment. Let's focus on this segment. Okay. In this segment, on 31st March 2016, it was reportable. 31st March 2017, not reportable. 31st March 2018, ध्यान देना, continues to remain not reportable. Then in this case, separate disclosures are not required. Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? In this case, separate disclosures are not required. Are you understanding? Again, I'm repeating for you. Look at segment B, 31st March 2016. A segment is not reportable, but 31st March 2017, it is reportable. So in the current year, 31st March 2017, separate disclosures are required for this segment. Look at case segment C. In 31st March 2017, it is not reportable, but in the previous year, 31st March 2016, it was reportable. So separate disclosures are required for 31st March 2017 in case of C and 31st March 2018 in case of B. And finally, look at segment C. 31st on 31st March 2018, a segment is not reportable. Previous year also it was not reportable, which means it remains not reportable for 2 consecutive years. Now separate disclosures are not required. Are you understanding? Okay. Please let me know. Are you clear with this? Are you clear with this? Are you absolutely clear with this? Are there any doubts? If there are, let's solve that first. Okay, if you are absolutely clear with this, let's go to a very important question, which is your question number 5. Mark this question, very important question. Question number 5. Question number 5. Now, if you look at the study material that I've given to you, there is a segment H over here, but you're not able to see the information. So what I suggest is, for everyone, this is a very important question. What I recommend to you is, let's copy the question again in your notebook and then we start solving it. Right? So let's prepare the question first. Practice question 5 is what we are doing. Practice question 5. You have particulars, segment A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So you have segment A, B, C. Then you have external sales. You then have external sales. Your external sales is 255, 15, 10, 15, 50, 20, and 35. External sales for the first one is nil. Come to inter-segment sales. Inter-segment sales is 100, 60, 30, 5, then you have nil, again you have nil, 5, and then you have nil. Okay, after that in the question, you have segment result. Segment result, you have 5 minus 90, then you have 15 minus 5, 8 minus 5, then you have 5, and finally the segment result for H is 7. After this, in the question, you have segment assets. Looking at the segment assets, you have segment asset of 17. So you have 17, then you have 50, 6, 13, 4, 6, 6, and 11. Then you have DTA also in this question. So DTA included above. DTA included above is 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, and 2. Okay, after this you have some additional information given as well. Let's understand that also. Additional information. I'm writing that for you. I would recommend you also write the question so that you're not confused later on while revising, because this question is your last day revision question. It is a very important question. It covers all the concepts of accounting standard 70. Let's proceed. You have First additional information, it says till the last year, segment E was reported separately. Second, the company uses cost method. The company uses cost method of transfer pricing at the organization level, but wants to use market price as transfer price at the segment level. The question is, can it do so? That's a question. Okay, this is your question. Please mark it. Very important. It is your last day revision question. Okay, it says till the last year segment E was reported separately. The company uses cost method of transfer pricing at the organization level, but now wants to use the market price at as the transfer price at the segment level. Can it do so? Okay, let's begin solving this question. So your first statement will be, as per accounting standard 17, segment reporting. As per accounting standard 17, segment reporting. करना क्या है इस क्वेश्चन में? We have to identify the reportable segments. So identification of reportable segments. Let's begin with based on segment revenue. Let's begin with this based on segment revenue. You have segment A, B, you have external sales and inter-segment sales. External sales and inter-segment sales. Then we will have the total, whether, and then we'll decide whether it is a reportable segment or not. Let's make the totals. You have 100 over here. You have 100 over here. After that, 255 plus 60 is 315. After that, you have 45, 15, 15, 50, 25, and 35. 25 and 35. Then you have the total. Let's take the total. You get your total as 400 and 600. Okay, let's begin solving this. Your total revenue is how much? 600. Your total revenue is 600. We have to take 10% of it. So 600 cut 10% comes to 60. Okay, now it's your turn. Tell me, is separate disclosure required? For segment A. Is separate disclosure required for segment A? Is separate disclosure required for segment A? Of course, yes, you will need separate disclosures for segment A because your 10% criteria comes to 60. However, you have 100. So since it exceeds the 10% criteria, separate disclosures are required. Fine. What about segment B? What about segment B? Are separate disclosures required for segment B? Of course, yes, separate disclosures are required for segment B because it exceeds the 10% criteria. So separate disclosures again are required for segment B. What about segment C? What about segment C? Are separate disclosures required for segment C? Not required. It does not exceed the 10% criteria. Okay, let's go to the next one. What about segment D? Are separate disclosures required for segment D? Are separate disclosures required for segment D? No, not required. Again, does not exceed the 10% criteria that we have set. So separate disclosures are not required. What about segment E? Are separate disclosures required for segment E? Do you need separate disclosures for segment E? No disclosures required. So segment E, again, no disclosures required. And finally, what about segment F? What about segment F? Are separate disclosures required for segment F? No. Separate disclosures again not required. What about segment G? Are separate disclosures required for segment G? No disclosures required. And finally, what about segment H? Are separate disclosures required for segment H? Do you need separate disclosures for segment H? Do you need separate disclosures for segment H? Look at the question and please tell me, do you need separate disclosures for segment H? Not required. So segment H, no disclosures are required. Right, which means based on segment revenue, reportable segments are you have segment A and segment B. So based on segment revenue, reportable segments are segment A and B. Are you getting it? If you're done with this, let's go to the next one. Based on segment result. Based on segment result. Your segment result. Look at the question. You have segment result. Since this is segment result, this is not required. Let's try and find out what are your segments in profit. Your segments in profit are A, C, E, G, and H. Your segments in profit are A, C, E, G, and H. Okay, make the total of A, C, G, and H. Your segments in profit, it will come to 520. 5 plus 15 is 20, then you have 28. 28 plus 5 is 33, and 7 you get 40. Let's now work out our segments in loss. Your segments in loss are B, D, and F. B plus D plus F comes to 100. You will of course pick up whichever is higher. So your higher is 100. We take 10% of that, which comes to 10. Are you understanding? You will get 10. Now tell me, is separate disclosure required for segment A? Is separate disclosure required for segment A? Is separate disclosure required for segment A? Check carefully and tell me, is separate disclosure required for segment A? Not required. Since it does not exceed 10%, that is 10, separate disclosure is not required. Perfect. What about segment B? What about segment B? Please remember, you will ignore the minus sign. In this case, you need 10, but you have 90. So it exceeds the 10% criteria. Separate disclosures are required. What about segment C? Are separate disclosures required for segment C? Yes, separate disclosures are required for segment C. What about segment D? What about segment D? Are separate disclosures required for segment D? Not required, because it does not satisfy the 10% criteria. What about segment E? Are separate disclosures required for segment E? Again, separate disclosures not required. Why? Because your 10% criteria is 10. However, here we have only 8. What about the next one? Segment F. Segment F. Are separate disclosures required for segment F? Not required. Segment G. Are separate disclosures required for segment G? Not required. So no disclosures required for segment G. What about segment H? Are separate disclosures required for segment H? Again, separate disclosures are not required for segment H. So finally, based on segment result, your reportable segments are B and C. B and C. Based on segment result are B and C. Are you understanding? Okay, if this is done, come to the last part, which is your segment assets. This time you have DTA, so that also needs to be deducted and taken care of. Based on based on segment assets. You have segment assets DTA included above. Here you have in the question segment assets and DTA included above. You will need total over here. So let's take that as well. Total of all your segment assets. What do you get as your total of all the segment assets? 113. And this is 13. Let's calculate the net assets. Your net assets will be 15. You have to deduct the DTA from the net assets, from the total assets. So when you deduct it from the total assets, you get 15. Over here, you get 47, you get 5, you get 11, 3, 5, 5, 9. Finally, your total comes to 100. Again, let's follow the 10% criteria, which comes to what? 10. The question to you is, are separate disclosures required for segment A? That is the question to you. Are separate disclosures required for segment A? Do you need separate disclosures for segment A? Of course, yes. Your criteria is 10, but you have 15. So separate disclosures are required. Okay. Are separate disclosures required for segment B? Are separate disclosures required for segment B? Of course, yes. Separate disclosures are required for segment B. Are separate disclosures required for segment C? No, separate disclosures are not required. Does not satisfy the 10% criteria. Segment D. Are separate disclosures required for segment D? Separate disclosures are required for segment D. What about segment E? Are separate disclosures needed for segment E? Again, does not satisfy the 10% criteria. No disclosures required. Come to the next one. Are separate disclosures required for segment F? Not required. So no disclosures required. What about segment G? What about segment G? Are separate disclosures required for segment G? No disclosures are required for segment G. And finally, what about segment H? Are separate disclosures required for segment H? Again, not required. So your reportable segments based on segment assets are segment A, you have segment B, and you have segment D. Your reportable segments are A, B, and D. Solve this much, then we proceed to the additional conditions. Additional condition 1. Additional condition 1. My question to you is any information given that we must provide voluntary disclosures for a particular segment? क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है कि ये सेगमेंट के लिए सेपरेट डिस्क्लोजर चाहिए, या आप प्लीज इस सेगमेंट का सेपरेट डिस्क्लोजर करना क्योंकि मैनेजमेंट वॉलंटरी डिस्क्लोजर जाता है. नो सच इंफॉर्मेशन हैज बीन गिवन. Since no such information has been given, additional condition 1 is not applicable. To us, additional condition 1 is not applicable. Are you understanding? Okay, now additional condition 2 is very interesting over here. It says, I'm again reading that additional condition for you. We have that additional condition. Let's read it again. At least 75% of the total external sales of all the segments should belong to reportable segments. If it is not so, then additional segment should be identified kaise? As per the choice of the management, even if it does not fulfill the 10% criteria. Okay, let's check first the 75% of your external sales. Look at the question. Your external sales is how much in the question? Let's check that. Here is our question. External sales in the end, in the question, total is 400. So you have total external sales of how much? 400. I'm writing over here. External sales is 400. Okay, let's calculate 400 into 75% comes to how much? 400 into 75% comes to how much? 300, which means your 400 ka 75% comes to 300. Your reportable segments, let's also find that. Let me put it over here. Your reportable segments are what? Let's not write final answer over here. That we will write at the end. Reportable segments as of now are A and B are there. A, B and C are there. And A, B, C and D are there. So my reportable segments are A, B, C and D. Right. Let's calculate sales of reportable segments. Let's calculate the sale of the reportable segment. If you look at the sales of the reportable segment, you have first is 0, A ka is 0, B may you have 255, C may you have 15 and D may you have 10, which makes it 280. Are you understanding? I'll show this to you. Just give me a moment. Okay, let's check this. If you look at the question, let's cross check from here. That will be a bit easier for you. Okay, this is your question. Look at the external sales. For A is nil, so I'm writing over here for A is nil. For B is 255, you have over here B is 255. For C you have 15, here you have 15, and for D you have 10, over here also you have 10. So the total of these three, 255 plus 15 plus 10 comes to 280, right? So I'm writing over here 280. 75%, I'll make it easier for you. You want 250, sorry 300, and you have is 280. आपको चाहिए कितना? 300. आपके पास है कितना? 280, which means 75% condition is not satisfied. 75% condition is not satisfied. Are you understanding? Again, first additional condition is not applicable to us. Look at the second additional condition. So we are talking about additional condition number 2. We have to find out 75% of external sales should come at least from the reportable segment. तो मैंने देखा अभी तक मेरे reportable segment कितने हैं? A, B, C, D. फिर मैंने 75% criteria निकाला. 400 का 75%. How much do we want? 300. Against that, how much do we have? That is the question. 300 we want, and we have how much? 0, 1, 0, 255, 15 and 10. We have how much? 280. हमको चाहिए कितना? 300. हमारे पास है कितना? 280. Which means the 75% condition is not satisfied. इसको satisfy करने के लिए हमको क्या करना पड़ेगा? अगर आपको 75% condition satisfy करनी है, तो जो भी नॉन रिपोर्टेबल सेगमेंट्स है, अभी तक कितने रिपोर्टेबल है? ए बी सी डी. देखो ये रहा, ए बी सी डी आर रिपोर्टेबल. आपको ई एफ जी एच में से एक ऐसा सेगमेंट उठाना है एज पर द चॉइस ऑफ द मैनेजमेंट. आई एम राइटिंग ओवर हियर, एज पर द चॉइस ऑफ द मैनेजमेंट, select a segment from the ones which are not reportable. E, F, G and H. E, F, G, H में से कोई भी एक सेगमेंट आप सिलेक्ट करो आपकी चॉइस का. I know that does not satisfy the 10% criteria. Still, you provide separate disclosures. Are you understanding? Still, you will have to provide separate disclosures for the same. Right. So now we have to make a choice. So I'm writing over here, choice of the management. अब देखो चॉइस कैसे करनी है वो भी एक important concept है. Let's go back to the question. Let's come to the question. A, B, C, D तो हो गया. E, F, G, H इसमें से हमको सिलेक्शन करना है. E, F, G, H में से हमको सिलेक्शन करना है. ओके, ध्यान देना क्वेश्चन पे. सबसे ज्यादा रेवेन्यू, एवरीवन ऑन योर चैट बॉक्स, सबसे ज्यादा रेवेन्यू कौन से सेगमेंट का है? E, F, G और H. सबसे ज्यादा रेवेन्यू कौन से सेगमेंट का है? E, F, G और H. Everyone agrees it is of segment F. Okay. Which segment has the lowest revenue? Which has the lowest revenue? E. Okay. So E has the lowest revenue. सबसे पहले क्या करने का? जिसका lowest revenue है, you remove that. Remove from the option. Why will you remove the lowest revenue from the option? See, you have a choice. Please understand, this is an opportunity you have. जब आपको एक एक्स्ट्रा सेगमेंट दिखाने को मिल रहा है, my question to you is, will you show a segment having good amounts or bad amounts? आपको किसी ने कहा है कि आप डिस्क्लोजर करो, जो आपको अच्छा लगता है करो. EFGH में से आप कौन सा सेगमेंट दिखाओगे? जिसकी फिगर्स अच्छी है कि जिसकी फिगर्स बुरी है? Of course, you will like to show the figures with the good amounts. So let's first remove E. Now our choices are F, G and H. F, G and H is now our choice. F, G and H में मैं मानता हूं कि F का प्रॉफिट बहुत अच्छा है, लेकिन आप एक बार F का रिजल्ट देखिए. F is a loss making segment. My question is, would you like to disclose a loss making segment? F, I agree, has a lot of profit, has the highest revenue. F has a lot of revenue, has the highest revenue. But my question to you is, would you like to show a segment which has a loss, because in spite of having high revenue, it is still incurring a loss? So will you like to show a segment which is a loss making segment? Of course not. So let's remove F also from the options. Remove F also from your options. Once you remove F also from your options, you are now left out with G and H. Right, if you look at G and H, the revenue of H is higher and the revenue of G is lower. On the other hand, the profit of H is also higher compared to G. Now, since H is more profitable, H is more profitable, H is having more revenue. Which will you select? G or H? Which one will you select, G or H? Of course, you will select H. So in spite of the fact that it does not satisfy the 10% criteria, I will have separate disclosures for segment H. So I am writing over here, I will have separate disclosure now for segment H. As per the choice of the management, separate disclosures are required for segment H, which means finally my reportable segments will include A, B, C, D and H. Are you understanding? They will have A, B, C, D and H. Are you understanding? Are you understanding this? Okay, quickly tell me, is this clear to you? If this is clear to you, we go to the next part. So my question to you is this absolutely clear to you? Is this entire additional condition to absolutely clear to you? Okay, I hope it is clear to everyone. This is a very important question, so please understand it and let me know if you have any doubts. Let's proceed now. Let's look at the additional information given in the question. It says till last year segment E was reportable. Okay, my question to you is, I am saying last year segment E was reportable. My question to you is segment E reportable in the current year? My question to you is segment E reportable in the current year? Yes, a segment which is not reportable in the current year, but it was reportable in the previous year, still separate disclosures are required in the current year. Okay, let's put that also as our answer. As per AS-17, if a segment was not reportable in the previous year but is not reportable in the current year, still separate disclosures are required for that segment. Hence, segment E requires separate disclosures. Are you understanding? So separates E. Segment E requires separate disclosures. Okay, let's go. So segment E requires separate disclosures. We'll have to remember that as our final answer. Last question that they've asked is, the company uses cost method for transfer pricing at the organization level, but now wants to use the market price as transfer price. Can it do so? Tell me. Can the company change the transfer pricing policy for the segment level? Can it have two different policies? Question is, of course, no. You need to follow consistency. Right, let's put that also as our answer. As per AS-17, the transfer policy adopted at the enterprise level should be used at the segment level. Therefore, the company can't the company cannot use therefore the company cannot use different transfer pricing policy the company cannot use different transfer pricing policy at the enterprise level and the segment report level. Therefore, your final answer, your segment, your reportable segments are A, B, C, D, E, and H. Your reportable segments are A, B, C, D, E, and H. Right, so you will need separate disclosures for A, B, C, D, E, and H. Are you absolutely clear with this question? Remember, this is a very important question. Please let me know if you're absolutely clear or not with this question. If you're not, I will repeat it for you. But do not adopt shortcuts. Understand the concept carefully. It has some very good concepts. So please look at the question and tell me, are you absolutely clear with this entire question that we did? Are you absolutely clear with this entire question? Right. Harshit, if you can please properly explain your question. Okay, Harshit, please properly explain your question. By the time I'll quickly repeat the additional condition, and then I'll also explain the transfer pricing policy. The first additional condition says that if the management wants to make additional voluntary disclosures of any particular segment, then they can make so. However, in the question they have not given any such information कि ये segment हमको voluntarily disclose करना है, क्योंकि क्वेश्चन में ऐसी कोई इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं दी है कि इसको वॉलंटरीली डिस्क्लोज करना है. दैट मीन्स that additional condition number 1 is not applicable to us, right? Come to additional condition number 2, which Harshit is also your doubt, so let's understand that. वो ऐसा कहते हैं at least 75% of the external sales should belong to the reportable segments. तो मैंने ये देखो कैलकुलेट किया, मेरे external sales 400 आ रहा है, उसका 75% आता है, उसका 75% आएगा 300. 300 is what we want. Against that, we have 280 as the total revenue from reportable segments, which means ये 300 की condition satisfy नहीं हो रही है. इसको satisfy करने के लिए हमको क्या करने को कहा है? हमको satisfy करने के लिए इसको satisfy करने के लिए ये करने को कहा है कि आप अपनी choice का कोई भी एक segment report कर सकते हो. क्योंकि आप अपनी choice का कोई भी एक segment report कर सकते हो. In this case, we will look at the question and find out which segment should we report, and that will be beneficial to us. So A, B, C, and D are already reportable. We will try and find out from E, F, G, and H. Now from E, F, G, and H, F has the highest profit and highest revenue, and E has the lowest revenue. So let's remove E because it has the lowest revenue. Let's not report that. We have good choices F, G, and H. मुझे F का revenue तो अच्छा लगता है, लेकिन वो loss making unit है, तो ये भी मुझे disclose नहीं करना चाहिए. Which means I will have to now make a choice from G and H. Looking at G and H, I come to know that my revenue from G is less compared to H, and H has higher profits. So because H is more having more amount of revenue, more amount of profits, no more amount of assets, I would like to report H. So H now becomes my reportable segment. So here I have H now becomes the choice of the management, and this is the segment I will separately disclose. Are you understanding? This is how you make the choice of which segment to be reported if the 75% condition is not satisfied. Right, so I hope Harshit and Akshay, both your doubts are solved. Yes, Akshay, the total revenue is 475, but the additional condition clearly tells you take 75% only of the external sales. Then why are you taking the internal as well? You only have to take the external sales. So read the condition properly, and you need to take only the external sales. No need to take the internal sales. Okay, so I hope Harshit and Akshay, your doubts are clear. Let's go to Aman, who says explain the transfer pricing policy. So transfer pricing policy means the policy at which one segment will give to the other segment. So whatever transfer pricing policy you are using, all you have to ensure is that you use the same transfer by pricing policy at the organization level and also at the segment level. You cannot have two different transfer pricing policies. The one that you use at the segment level, the same you will have to use at the organization level. Okay, let's then go to the doubt of Spruha, who says, what if the revenue of E would have been 20? Then also we would have to make disclosures on other segments. Of course, if you look at 20, now look at the question again. If this was 20, then again your segment H has better revenue. Because your segment H has better revenue, there is no reason why you will still select E. So of course you would like to select segment H, because if the revenue of E was 20, still H is having better revenue and better profits compared to E. So you would still stick to H. Okay, and then I have one more doubt which says that Okay, even if segment E was reportable in the last year, so as such you need separate disclosures for E. If then still in that case I would suggest that you have a choice of showing segment H which has higher profits. Because you have a choice of segment which has higher profits, still you will not report that. Plus one more thing, you first look at which of the segments satisfy the 10% criteria, then you check the 75% criteria, and then you go to which were reportable in the previous year and which are not reportable in the current year. So you're saying that segment E was reportable in the current year, so we should disclose is correct, but does not mean that the management will make a choice on the basis of that. Management अपना independent choice लेगी, reportable in the last year but not reportable in the current year, ये सारी चीजें लास्ट में चेक की जाती है. सबसे पहले आता है 10% क्राइटेरिया, फिर आता है 75% क्राइटेरिया, एंड आफ्टर दैट यू हैव द प्रीवियस ईयर रिपोर्टेबल क्राइटेरिया. Right, so Spruha, the answer to your question is even if E had 20, still E is reportable at the end. 75% criteria E से पहले check करना होता है. Okay, and then I guess I have one more out which says suppose in segment E had external sales of 20. I think Raj, I've answered your doubt as well. So I hope this is completely clear to you. Please look at the question again. I will wait for another couple of minutes to ensure that all your doubts are clear. Okay, is there anyone else who has a doubt? If you have, please tell me and let's solve it. Look at the question properly. I'm giving you a couple of minutes to quickly look at the question, look at all the entire solution. I'm sure you would have written the solution in your book. If the revenue of E and H are same, okay, so Pushti has a doubt that what if the revenue of E and H are same? If the revenue of E and H are same, then you will make a choice based on the profit that they have. Whichever company has more profit, you will select that. Right, I hope that answers your doubt. Okay, Harshit, if you can properly explain your question, what if there was no option of G and H and has to make decision out of E and F? I don't understand this. If you do not have the option of E and H, then their revenue will also be reduced. Because their revenue is reduced, total external sales, again, we will have to make the 75% criteria. So the answer to your question is not possible, because then you will have to recalculate your question. So what you will do in that case is, how will you recalculate your question? You will first remove G and the ones you are saying G and H. After removing, again you will have to check the 75% criteria, and then you will have to make a choice of which segments are reportable and which are not. Right, I hope that solves everyone's doubts. If you still have a doubt, okay, there is one more question. What is deferred tax asset? Now, deferred tax asset is something which I would tell you that just wait, we will be doing accounting standard 22. When we do accounting standard 22, that is the time I'll explain to you, because you need to know. Okay, please tell me one thing. Have you been taught PGBP in taxation, ये PGBP आपको पढ़ा दिया है in taxation. Have you been taught PGBP in taxation? No. So since you've not been taught PGBP in taxation, I don't think you will be able to properly understand what is a deferred tax asset. So I would request you to just hold on for some time. In a couple of weeks, we will be proceeding to accounting standard 22. So that is the time when you will be able to completely understand what this deferred tax asset is. As of now, it is important for you to understand only one thing, and that important thing that you need to understand is that you cannot have two different policies. You need one policy as far as transfer pricing is concerned. As far as DTA is concerned, you need to remember that DTA from the assets should always be deducted. You cannot have DTA included in the assets. You need to deduct the DTA, and only then you will get your net assets, and you will take your decisions based on those net assets. So deferred tax asset should always be deducted from your total assets. Right? Anyone else who has a doubt? This is a very important question. I'm purposefully allowing you some time to get to your doubts so that you are absolutely clear with this. Okay, let's proceed. Since you're clear with this, I am sending you two questions on your official group. I am sending you two images on your group. Look at those images. I have sent you two questions on your official group. Let's begin with illustration number 3. Illustration number 3. Let's begin with illustration number 3. Let's do illustration number 3. Then we go to illustration number 2. Okay, illustration number 3. I'm reading the question for you. Pay attention. Messrs XYZ Limited has 3 segments, X, Y, and Z. So I'm writing over here X, Y, and Z. 3 segment है हमारे पास. आगे देखो क्या दिया हुआ है. Segment X has 2 crores, segment Y has 3 crores, and segment Z has 5 crores. So total assets, your assets from the segments are 2 crores, 3 crores, and 5 crores. Okay, so these are your segment assets: 2 crores, 3 crores, and 5 crores. Okay, then you have the next sentence, that is DTA included in above is. So DTA included above is क्या कितना DTA है? 0.5 for X, you have 0.4 for Y, 0.3 for Z. 0.5 for X, 0.4 for Y, 0.3 for Z. Let's calculate. करना क्या है क्वेश्चन में, पहले वो देखते हैं. The accountant contends that all the segments are reportable segments. Let's find that out. Now see, in this question they have not given you segment revenue or segment result. So we will have to take a decision based on the segment assets that have been given to you. Right, let's solve it. Let's calculate your net assets. So 2 minus 0.5 will be 1.5, 3 minus 0.4 will be 2.6, and this will be 4.7. We will have to take a total, so let's make the total. So you get how much? 8.8. We will have to calculate the 10% for 8.8, comes to 0.88. Now when you have 0.88, tell me, is segment X reportable? My question to you is segment X reportable? My question to you is segment X reportable? Yes, of course, segment X is reportable. Why? Because it fulfills the 10% criteria. Okay, what about segment Y? Is segment Y reportable? Is segment Y reportable? Yes. Okay, finally, what about segment Z? Is segment Z reportable? Is segment Z reportable? Again, yes. Segment Z is reportable. Why? Because it satisfies the 10% criteria, which means reportable segments. In this case, your reportable segments are X, Y, and Z, which means the contention of the accountant is correct. The contention of the accountant is correct. All segments are reportable. Are you understanding? Easy ekdam? Okay, let's do the last question for today. And then we have only one question that will be left. That is the last question that we will do tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll finish off AS-17. Come to the last question. Let's do illustration number 2. Last question for today, illustration number 2. Okay, I'm reading the question for you. It says a company has inter-segment transfer pricing policy of charging cost less 10%. The market price is 25% above cost. Is the policy adopted by the company correct? Okay, question समझना. वो ऐसा बोल रहे हैं कि कंपनी जो ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी फॉलो करती है वो है कॉस्ट लेस 10%. कंपनी ये मेथड यूज करती है, जबकि मार्केट प्राइस कितना है 25% above cost. ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग पॉलिसी क्या है? कॉस्ट लेस 10%. कंपनी क्या मार्केट प्राइस कितना है 25% above cost. Now see, understand, be very clear with one thing. The question will confuse you. You be clear with one thing कि देखो उनको कॉस्ट लेस 10% यूज करना हो, कॉस्ट यूज करना हो, या मार्केट प्राइस अबाउट 25% यूज करना हो, हमको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. ऑल वी वांट इज कंसिस्टेंसी. आप जो मेथड सेगमेंट लेवल पे फॉलो कर रहे हो वही मेथड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लेवल पे फॉलो कर रहे हो, या फिर जो मेथड आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लेवल पे फॉलो कर रहे हो वही मेथड आप सेगमेंट लेवल पे फॉलो कर रहे हो. हमारी सिर्फ यही एक रिक्वायरमेंट है, हमारी और कोई रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. आपको जो पॉलिसी यूज करनी है, यू आर फ्री टू यूज एनी पॉलिसी दैट यू वांट टू यूज. Right, you can use any transfer pricing policy. AS-7 does not interfere in that. Only AS-7 needs is that the policy used at the organization level, the same policy should be used at the segment report level. Are you understanding? Okay, let's read the solution. AS-17 segment reporting requires that inter-segment transfer should be measured on the basis of that the enterprise actually uses to price these transfers. the basis of pricing intersegment transfers can change therein because of uh, can change therein should be disclosed in the financial statements. Hence, very important statement. The enterprise can have its own policy for pricing inter-segment transfers, and hence inter-segment transfers may be based on cost, below cost, or market price. However, whichever policy is followed, important underline the same should be disclosed and applied consistently. Therefore, in the given case, inter-segment transfer pricing policy adopted by the company is correct only if followed consistently. Are you understanding? So whatever transfer pricing policy you are following does not make any difference. All we want is only one thing, that it should be applied consistently. Are you understanding? Okay. I hope everything is clear to you. We are left only with one question. That one question we will be doing tomorrow, and then tomorrow we are done up with accounting standard 17. Right? You will go back today and revise the entire accounting standard 17, whatever we have done, and then tomorrow you'll come back with doubts. Today we will be continuing at 3:30 with your audit SA 300, right? So ensure you have studied everything so that you can come back with doubts. I'm again repeating, though we are not having physical lectures, these are online lectures. I am going to solve each and every question that is there over here, and I request you to copy each and every question in your notebook, write it properly. That is the first time when you solve it looking at the solution I make. Second time you will solve it on your own, right? In again in the notebook, not orally. You will solve it on your own, and then if you have any doubts, you will come back to it. Right? I hope that is clear. Thank you so much for attending. I will now see you at 3:30. Do revise whatever we have studied so that you can come back with your doubts and I can solve them. Right? Thank you so much for attending. Bye.